Don't you love it when things are both easier and more affordable? Like when the rain washes your car for you. Or like when you save up to 10% by bundling your renters and auto insurance with USAA. Bundle with USAA and start saving. Get a quote today.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon Business. How can you free up your team from time-consuming office tasks? Amazon Business empowers leaders to not only streamline purchasing, but better support their teams so they can focus on strategy and growth. Free up your teams and focus on your future. Learn more about the technology, insights, and support available at amazonbusiness.com.
Welcome to NatureBacked. Today I'm here with Elizabeth Corbett. Elizabeth, please introduce yourself.
Sure. My name is Beth. I'm from the United States. I live part-time in Miami and part-time in Seattle, which is as far apart as anybody could probably live. I am the president of the enterprise group for AE Global, and we're a full-size, full-service packaging company down here in Miami. I have about 25 years experience developing custom packaging solutions for all different kinds of companies, everybody from Tiffany to some of the largest cannabis companies in the world. And one of my favorite things to do in this job is to help people find the most sustainable solutions possible.
We have had a few companies here on the show which either fight the plastic packaging or try to do something on a kind of more sustainable side. How would you describe that kind of today's state of packaging industry? Looking from outside, it seems a little bit like it's one of the problems to solve, so to say.
I think, yes, it's a problem, but I think that most good companies are addressing it and making it part a top of mind conversation, whether that's looking at your existing packaging and figuring out how to make it more sustainable. I worked with a company last year where they have 150 existing SKUs because they bought a bunch of companies, and we were able to identify ways for them to make that packaging more sustainable simply by reducing the size on a number of the items. They had at least 10 items that had a plastic thermoform tray where we were able to convert that to a corrugated tray. So in that case, we believe it or not, we were actually able to save them money in the long run. We were also able to, where possible, change things to be FSC certified paper or maybe post-consumer paper, depending on whether it was a paperboard or folding carton. So sometimes it's literally as simple as looking at your existing substrates and figuring out, can I make it smaller? Could I make it, chain of custody certified like FSC? Could I make it post-consumer? Can I make sure it's recyclable? And then sometimes plastic is the only way. And in that case, there are options for, lighting it, reducing the amount of material. Maybe it's making it 100% post-consumer. Maybe it's 30% post-consumer. Sometimes it's figuring out where the product comes from. There is no such thing as a perfect solution, right? So oftentimes you have to think about, where is it coming from? So if I'm looking at putting something in glass, but the only place that I can make it is Taiwan or China, and glass uses an amazing amount of energy and amazing amount of water, both when it's made and also when it's recycled, is that really the best fit?
Totally
So
agree.
I like to say it's complicated. It's very complicated.
Yeah, which of course means that there are also business opportunities and all that logic. If it would be simple, then everybody would be doing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
The other side, how much every now and then you hear environmentalists talking about the full circle of recycling packaging and reusing it. How much of the niche is it, and do you actually see an opportunity there?
Yeah, I mean, Europe is really is very much ahead of us in terms of recycling. I think most people know that. One of the things that's really difficult in the United States is the fact that each municipality, each state does their own thing. So you end up having some markets like a Seattle or a Portland or some of the cities in California that are way ahead of the pack, whether it's that you can recycle almost everything that you can compost almost anything. Because, one of the biggest contributors to at least the garbage situation in the United States is actually food waste. So we have very big opportunities to work on that side. There are some really interesting things being done in terms of gathering and processing what would have been ocean-bound plastic. My company invested in an organization called the Ocean Recovery Group, which built a facility in the Dominican Republic for gathering and processing what would have been ocean-bound plastic, bringing that back to Miami where it can be turned into other products. The interesting there is, and this goes again to the kind of the footprint when we were talking about the glass, that's the only facility like it in the Western Hemisphere. Everything else that you buy that's made with ocean-bound plastic is all coming from Malaysia and Indonesia and the Southeast. And I don't want to stop that. And I really need to, I want to acknowledge that. I want to honor that. But we have a lot more work to do on this side as well. The other thing is finding things that ocean-bound plastic can be used for. So it can't be food grade, right? But it can be used for things like Windex bottles. Windex is one of the people that has committed to being able to do that. And then there are companies who don't have a choice but to be in plastic, especially pharma, a lot of food stuff and pouches. But you have ways to participate in things like, again, we work with Repurpose Global, where you can actually purchase credits that help go toward the continued funding of gathering and processing ocean-bound plastic and using it for other things. Again, you can use it for furniture, you can use it for all kinds of stuff. You just can't put food in it.
Exactly, because plastic is a massive thing, and we use it in today's society everywhere.
We do.
So the opportunities there are clearly massive. But the kind of any good examples of, you talked about the Dominicani case, but any good examples of companies trying to have the full circle of their packaging packages which live eternally. That would be the ideal solution, right? You get your Amazon package and you send back something and it comes again in the same package and so on and so on and so on.
That is nirvana, and there are many companies who would love to do that. Right now, there's nothing set up where, I'll use plastic especially, there's nothing set up where you can recycle it and then it goes back to being, let's say, the jar that I can reuse again. So recycled, unfortunately, that doesn't exist. Probably the closest thing that you could see with that would be aluminum recycling, right? Because the great thing about aluminum is it can be recycled a zillion times. And if I was running a beverage company, I would do aluminum any day over glass, for many, many, many different reasons. So that's probably the closest thing to that. Paper is one of those things that, can be recycled, they say 7 to 8 times before the fibers get so small that they just kind of fall through in the process. But nobody's able to do anything where it's like a full circle.
And also,
I'm not trying to be negative. It's everybody's dream.
No, of course. And, if it's everybody's dream, then, we're all happy if somebody actually breaks that breaks through with that idea, clearly. I think on the show
you do have a lot of opportunities to do the right thing, though, in terms of using post-consumer content where possible, or if it's possible to create something that's recyclable, or look at how you've created your project and make sure that it's recyclable. We all have, like I said, I'm a big believer that the way to make an impact can sometimes be in really small steps.
Absolutely, and more, the steps add up if you do them on a continuous basis. That makes a lot of sense, of course.
This episode is brought to you by Temptations Cat Treats. Your cat will come running for the perfectly irresistible Temptations Creamy Puree and Temptations Lickable Spoon Cat Treats. The best time to feed lickable cat treats to your cat is anytime. Feed by hand for a playful moment, in a bowl for a creamy treat, or as a topper to make mealtime fun. Visit TemptationsTreats.com to learn more.
Hello, Nigel here. As an owl, I love to be awake all night, but allergy sufferers like you probably don't feel the same. So take Xyzal at night to relieve allergies while you sleep. Then wake up fully refreshed for a more productive day. Xyzal works fast and offers 24-hour continuous relief from sneezing, runny nose, itchy watery eyes, and itchy nose and throat, so you can enjoy doing the things you love all day long. Be wise all. Take Xyzal at night. Use as directed. Starts working in 45 minutes.
We have had on the show one German startup which was using ocean plastic to make their own plastic boxes, which had the idea of being returned from their customers. I don't know how far they are. It's worth probably checking up, but there are at least clearly some attempts where the idea is the package would travel more than the goods, so to say.
We're creating, using the ocean-bound plastic. We have a product called Easy Lock, which is a child-resistant package that's a combination of paperboard and ocean-bound plastic, and that is fully recyclable. It unfortunately, I don't know how you would get it back to us or back to somebody to reuse it in its current form, but it is fully recyclable.
I mean, that's the challenge with a lot of recyclable stuff. You kind of need to sort it in a very specific level, and you need huge volumes to actually make it happen. A lot of goods we buy or get delivered to our home are officially recyclable, but the challenge is that nobody knows how to recycle them, and nobody does on the municipal side, or so to say. You were earlier comparing a little bit the US and the Europe, and said your challenge is that you have so many municipalities and states. It's the same in Europe, or
Really?
you could say even more.
Oh, wow. I just think of you guys. I mean, take this in the best way. I just think of you guys as being so much better than us when it comes to sustainability.
On some things, that's most likely the case. But on the other things, I mean, we still have 30 different countries with the 30 totally different legislations. Yes, some of it has been, made similar through the EU systems, but at the same time, the borders between the countries are, typically much more strict than the borders between the US states.
Really?
So if you're building a company in Europe, your challenge is actually crossing the borders unless you do something in a digital sphere.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, it's just really hard here because if I were king, if I were queen, the one of the first things that I would address is figuring out how to figure out the whole recycling municipality thing, because I've seen how it can work, because honestly, it works really well in Seattle. And as much as anybody wants to complain, oh, it's hard for people. Oh my God, my parents are in Portland. That's where I grew up. My mom is religious about sorting everything now. It's like it's an education thing, right? It's education, and then it becomes easy, and it just becomes part of everyday life. And in South Florida, it kills me that I have to throw away food waste, right? Because in Seattle, I can compost everything. And the city of Seattle figured out how to make money doing it, which is great, right?
Amazing. Everybody wins.
Yep, everybody wins.
But
I found my passion. When I'm retired, I'm gonna start my own NGO that's gonna help municipalities to, develop their own stronger recycling and composting programs.
I hope NGOs will sort it out at least on some level before we retire. But who knows?
Who knows?
But you can always hope, of course. But on a company level, if you look into that 2025, what are your big challenges? What are the big milestones you guys want to reach?
I think it's a matter of, it's interesting. Overall, and I'm sure this is true in Europe, but overall, corporate America has really evolved in terms of how they look at their packaging systems or their brands. And the really good news is, whenever I sit down with a customer, and whether it's building a new brand or addressing a rebrand, the sustainability is always part of the conversation. And for us as a company, it's one of the first questions, right? It's, when do you want to have it? When do you want this done? what's your budget? What are your target cost of goods? What's your brand about, and what's your sustainability story? And it's part of that core. And my guidance would be, if you are a brand and you're looking at a rebrand or creating something new, make sure that that's part of the thought process up front, because there are a lot of things that you can do that aren't necessarily going to drive costs. And to be more sustainable does not mean you have to spend more money. And if you do have to spend more money, my goal is that that's minuscule, because I understand it's a tough environment and we would all like to be as sustainable as possible, but we also have budgets.
Typical business challenge. You have budgets.
Well, it is, unfortunately, but I think there's a good way to I always ask people, it's like, what are your target cost of goods? And let's work within that.
Absolutely. Good. Any words to wrap it up?
If you have any questions and you would like to speak further with me, would love to help you in terms of your path toward more sustainable solutions in your packaging. We also have great connections. We can connect you with other people if I'm not the right answer for something. And the best way to get a hold of me is on LinkedIn.
Thank you so much, Beth, for this discussion.
Thank you.
If you like the show, subscribe and leave a good rating on the podcast platform of your choice. It would mean a world to us.
Hi, I'm Sherilyn Fenn from Twin Peaks. What did you do on your last Saturday night?
Did you hear something?
Toilet paper.
There's none. Nada. The reserves have gone dry. People are hoarding it. I should have done that.
They're all out of hand sanitizer at my Target.
Mark, when did you last watch the news?
We are getting reports of forced quarantines in China, Japan, and now Italy.
You're cutting onions in half and putting them around your apartment.
Yes, exactly. It kills the COVID.
Excuse me?
Let's go. Let's go. Get in.
Vamos, rápido.
Have you ever driven one of these?
Never.
I'll drive, ladies.
I've got the keys.
Excuse me, I'm lost. I'm looking for my wife. I got turned around.
Join me, Eric Roberts, Jennifer Elise Cox, and Ed Asner for The Last Saturday Night, an Electrocast podcast. You'll love it. Electrocast.
Why is it that games make us feel so good or completely rage quit? These emotions we feel are mostly not an accident. People like me designed them. I'm Chris Cross, and this is Brain Arcade, a podcast all about the psychology of game design and why games hit us so hard. Each week, I bring on a new guest, designers, psychologists, storytellers, to break it all down with me. If you play, design, or just love games, follow now.
Electrocast.